Hello my friends and welcome. Now more about the yesterday's strike of Ukrainian FPV drones on many of the Russian military airfields. We have already published satellite image or images for our review. This is Belaya long-range aviation base of the Russian aviation, and you may see many of the Tupolev 95s were kaboomed out there. According to initial analysis, just in the single Russian base, at least 4 of the Tupolev 95 were kaputted, so 3 totally kaputted and 1 sustained damages that will not allow it to fly. Plus we have the confirmation that Russia lost 3 of the bombers in those Caponiers. Those are Tupolev 22 M3. So in this base alone there are at least 7 of the losses. It means that the scale of the Russian loss in general for yesterday is much bigger than we all expected, and that the number of 41 airplanes that was said by Ukrainian military command could be after all real. Yeah, obviously if we take altogether destroyed and damaged airplanes. And also we have the confirmation from the eyewitnesses. For example, here's the video filmed by the firefighter. I'm gonna put some of the subtitles for you to understand. I know Russian, so I am capable to translate everything for you.
И таких еще 7 штук. Сейчас водой заправлюсь, поеду еще один самолет дотушивать.
There are 7 more airplanes like that, so totally 8 airplanes, and I'm gonna take more water, try to eliminate the fire. So yesterday I've told you about 8 of the airplanes, and actually, yeah, 8 of the airplanes, not in general, but in particular airfield. And there were totally 5 of the airfields where Ukraine used FPV drones. Well, I guess that the scale of the success is different, but kabooms were reported in all 5. Well, actually the strike on Ukrainka military airfield didn't work well for Ukraine. As I've told you yesterday, the track kaboomed itself. Maybe because of the heat, the drone started just to explode, so this Far East Russian base is safe. Well, at least for now. For the future, well, Ukraine may come out with new ideas. As you may see, Ukraine is introducing those kind of the movie-like scenarios in real life, and they work. Ukraine is the only country so far which was capable to eliminate the vast part of the strategic bombers of nuclear country. So there are a couple of the airfields near Moscow, also airfield Alenia and Belaya. We have the most videos coming from Belaya, Irkutsk Oblast. And yeah, it's located thousands of kilometers away from Ukraine. Ukraine definitely went inside Russia. The Russian intelligence, the Russian military was caught off guard. Absolutely, guys. By the way, Ukraine started to use the similar tactics with FPV drones, launching them from drone boats. Just to recall the strikes on Russian facilities in Crimea, and with the help of the partner of my channel, I'm gonna tell you more about that one. Guys, as you probably know, I'm on YouTube already for a very long time, for years. And I have not just this YouTube channel, but 2 more. So my followers, subscribers, they ask me sometimes of how to start this journey, or how to just film video for themselves, how to generate it, how to edit, how to film basically. And I recommend at first not to invest in a fancy expensive equipment and not studying the complicated software for editing, but to generate your idea live straight away. And the sponsor of today's video helps with that a lot. I'm speaking about InVideo AI. And let me show you how you may generate the video using just the prompt text. We are now on the website of InVideo AI. Just make sure you use version 3 because it's their best engine. So let's go and type something into the prompts. So here we go with my text. It could be not grammatically correct, but I don't care. Machine will understand that. Create a 1-minute video describing how Ukrainian drone boats managed to dominate our Russian Navy in Black Sea. And here we have some of the options for the video. Immediately I go to generative media. Basically, I will create images for me instead of taking those just from stock. Let's go with realistic style audience for the video. Military enthusiasts. I guess you are, guys, if you are watching military maps and updates from the front lines. Platform YouTube. Alright, let's continue. Alright, so here we have the video as preview and you can download it for us. Let's watch it at first.
I bet you've never thought about how a small country's navy could outsmart a superpower, have you? Well, strap in because I'm about to blow your mind with the story of how Ukraine's tiny drone boats are giving Russia's massive navy some serious headaches in the Black Sea. You know, it's like David versus Goliath, but with explosives and way more water. Now, you might be wondering, how exactly are these little Ukrainian boats taking on the might of the Russian Navy? Well, let's take a closer look. These aren't your average remote-controlled toys. We're talking about the Magura USV, a cutting-edge, unmanned surface vessel that's packed with enough explosives to make a serious dent in even the toughest warship. And boy, have they been making dents.
Well, Magura boats in real life, they're a little different. The water is drawn very well and images are detailed. I would say in general it's enough for the storytelling. The problem here, I guess, that there are not many images of Magura boats out there in internet. That's why we have a little different boats, but idea is understandable. And yeah, you may create any sort of the video on any sort of the topic. Here you can see it's almost like real. Especially the drone operator and reflection in his glasses, wow, that's great. If you somehow do not like your final result, you may go to Edit, and here you may correct or change what you want. Also, you may give the command directly, again using prompts. For example, I put use my voice, so you might use your voice as a narrator. Or here you can type make the video more intense, let's say, and it will make the job for you. And yeah, in general, you're just limited with your imagination. The good thing that you may try InVideo AI for free. This might save you hundreds of dollars, which you potentially might spend for expensive software and hardware. Try InVideo AI using my personal link in the video description just below and become director, editor, cameraman and narrator. Yeah, everyone in the same person creating fantastic content. I really like this product and I recommend it for you. InVideo, thank you so much for sponsoring this video. Well, Russians already published the information about Timofeyev Artem Valerievich, who is actually a Ukrainian one who was born, I guess, in Donetsk region, but was living in Russia for a long time, and he has his own transport company. As it is reported, the trucks from his company were involved in attack, but later on, after several hours, Russians somehow deleted the information from the wanted list. Kind of strange, maybe they falsely published the information. But Zelensky already stated that everyone involved in this operation were taken out from Russia, so there is no risk for them. However, there is the risk for the Russian ordinary people. As you may see here, Russia stops all of the trucks, they're checking everything, and they arrested the drivers of the trucks which were involved in attack. However, drivers, they didn't know anything. According to the latest information, some of the drivers even tried to stop the drones from flying from the trucks to hit the Russian military, but they were not successful in that. They were just told to arrive to a particular spot, particular place, and stay there waiting for rotation or new cargo. But the rest of the job was done automatically, so there were some of the pistons installed which blown up the roofs of the containers, and later on drones just started to fly massively. Yeah, obviously with the help of the drone operators. I heard that some people say that no, they were like artificially intelligence powered and controlled. I don't think so. Especially Zelensky said himself that drone operators were involved in this operation. I just wonder whether those were located on Russian territory or everything was done remotely from Ukraine. I guess the second variant. By the way, I showed you this video yesterday, filmed by the Russian conscript soldier who filmed the burning airplanes. Let's watch it once again. So what does Russian propaganda advise us to do? How to fight with those drone strikes? So let's check out what Solovyov says in one of his programs. Here are some of the subtitles generated by Ukrainian Witness channel. I took it from their source.
Видео, которые появляются оттуда, снимают срочники. А можно его расстрелять, этого срочника?
Can we shoot this conscript who was filming video of our planes burning?
Вот вывести эту сволочь и перед строем просто расстрелять.
We should take this bastard out of the front of the line and shoot him as a traitor to the motherland. Not the FSB or Russian intelligence because of its inaction. No, everything is wonderful in Russia. Just do not film and do not publish everything. If you do it, you're a traitor. Do not show problems to society. That's the classical philosophy of the Soviet old dinosaur mindset, and so actually I encourage them to do like that. Do not look up, do not film, do not show anything. Everything is fine. Russia may calmly lose their strategic aviation. Ukraine may publish some of the videos, that's it. Russians stay calm because the special military operation goes perfectly according to plan. The difference that we have in Western society is that if there is the problem, you need to speak about it, to resolve it. If you stay calm about it, if you do not show, the problem will rise bigger and bigger, as it happens there in Russia. By the way, has someone seen this guy yesterday or today? It seems like Putin is not saying or commenting about Ukrainian strikes at all. The strikes, which cancelled the vast part of the Russian strategic capabilities to deliver nukes elsewhere. Putin is calm. He's sitting in his bunker and he probably has nightmares with lots of the trucks and FPV drones flying. Where is he? Wearing his military uniform, saying that everything goes according to plan and Russia is winning. Not this time, apparently. This day in history, officially 29 years ago, Ukraine lost the status of nuclear country. The last nuclear warhead was sent to Russian Federation. But with the help of the simple FPV drones, Ukraine performs the unachievable, as many thought, tasks. And guys, we have more information about the FPV drones which were used in particular. Those are the Ukrainian-made drones OSA from the First Contact Ukrainian company, the company which produces drones. The difference between this one and the standard drone that it has the closed body construction, as you may see. Electronics and everything is hidden inside the drone construction. That is done for the drones to sustain the possible transportation damages. Also, there were construction elements added to the body for those particular drones, and as many say, those contains some of the flammable fuel. It's kind of logical to spread it on the target, and judging from the videos we all saw yesterday, how Russians' airplanes kaboom, definitely it looks like some sort of the napalm shell, the small one, but there was the fuel burning immediately right away, so there could be some of the fuel stored in those constructions. And actually it also explains why one of the tracks went on fire, because probably the fuel spilled there and it caught fire. Well, OSA is kind of capable drone because it may carry up to 3.5 kilograms of the payload, so some of the shell, and the speed of the unit is up to 150 kilometers an hour. Fast machines indeed. Now there is the big dilemma for Russians of what to do with their airplanes, because they're stored open air on all of the Russian military airfields. Yeah, occasionally they have air defense, but they are unable to cover and protect everything. They thought that deep inside Russia, Ukraine will never cause the massive devastations to their strategic aviation, but no, de facto Ukraine planned the attack and executed it quite successfully. And I see that there is no fast solution indeed for Russians. They cannot put extra air defense systems, they're simply out of them. Russia is so big, they need to protect their military on the front lines, they need to protect their military bases in Kursk Oblast, in Belgorod, and they need to protect Moscow and Putin also. That's the most precious target. Putin doesn't care about strategic aviation relative to his own life. So obviously he would choose to send more of the air defense to Moscow. But air defense is useless actually against small targets like FPV drones. So the picture for the Russian military aviation doesn't look good at all. There is no imminent antidote against those strikes. Yeah, now they stop their tracks and they check their tracks and containers and everything, but it may last for how long? Several months? The Russian economy wouldn't handle those checks all the time. It will gradually slow down. And knowing Russian mentality, the Russian corruption, Ukraine may easily perform the second step of the same spider web operation. And building hangars is not the way out for Russia either, because it's not possible to build them in a matter of months. No, they need to spend years and years for that to protect their bombers. Alright, we have one more video published by the Russian channels. Luckily there are no any watermarks, and here we see the scale of the Russian. Those are two 22 M3 bombers, probably those burning as well. By the way, it's the stand of the Russian Tupolev 160 airplane. So here is Tupolev 160. Here it is. Here it is. Those are very capable bombers, the best ones in the world. But it's definitely hard to tell that it's definitely Tupolev 160 because the tail part is kind of large. Well, maybe it was damaged and wrecked like that. It's hard to say about it right now with all of that partial evidence coming, so I'm still waiting for more satellite images. By the way, it happened also in Irkutsk region of the Russian Belaya military base, military airfield. The Russian military bloggers start to publish those kind of the photos. This is the old Soviet abandoned airplane. It's called the airfield of Smerny. During the Soviet times, there were actually some of the hangars built for the Russian military, but this airport, as you can see, with lots of the hangars, is out of use. Just abandon those taxiways and hangars. And what's this airplane type? I guess it is Sukhoi 24. I wonder if you can fit Tupolev 222 M3 here. And Russians, well, they're screaming and crying that we need to build those hangars because without them our aviation is doomed. Yeah, your aviation is doomed. So the Ukrainian strike was indeed kind of brilliant, and no civilians were hurt, by the way. All of the civilians will be hurt by Russian FSB. All of the truck drivers involved have been already arrested. Even the cashiers of the gas stations where those trucks were refueling are now being detained. So lots of the Russian civilians who were not even involved in that are now being prosecuted, detained, arrested. Some of them will get many years in prison. It happened also with the Crocus City Hall attack in Moscow, where Russia captured those attackers, but they didn't find out who organized that. Well, Putin blamed Ukraine as usual, but after all, the Russian investigative committee say that it wasn't Ukraine. Crazy stuff is happening in Russia, isn't it? Some of the familiar sound, those are the Ukrainian drones flying to Borysaglebsk Russian military airfield. It happened after the major strike, but also yesterday night. Borysaglebsk is also the base for the Russian military aviation, but here we speak mostly about fighter jets. The Russian influencer fighter bomber affiliated with the Russian Air Force stated that today a large number of the jet UAVs attacked the airfield in Borysaglebsk. There were no losses in equipment, internal memory to the deceased. So no equipment, but someone deceased. As you may see, there are lots of the likes from the pro-Ukrainian community. So it's not the end for the Russian military airfields. No, Ukraine will continue the strikes using long-range drones and maybe some of the container drones. Who knows, maybe Ukraine has a couple of those spiderweb operations ongoing in planning stage and will be implemented very soon. Yeah, just to remind, the major strike was planned for 1.5 years. And there are not just military airfields. For example, this is the Russian pigment factory located not far away from St. Petersburg. Well, no drone strikes were reported. It looks like, after all, it's the smoking issue once again, but the factory had lots of the contracts with the Russian army. They produce some of the chemicals and paint. And yeah, actually Ukraine yesterday sent lots of the drones on territory of the Russian Federation, mostly neighboring oblasts, but some went even to the Moscow region. Ukraine makes the headlines in the world media again. Ukraine just rewrote the rules of war. Indeed, it happened. I would say even the NATO standards are now behind Ukraine if we speak about the drone usage. CBS News said that the United States didn't know about the planned operation by Ukraine, so Ukraine does it actually solo. At this level, it's huge. Right, guys, yesterday I was looking very precisely to those images and how Russia actually protected their airplanes, and understood what was their main failure, especially with those tires. You know, it's the summertime already. The first day of the summer, the 1st of June was by the time of the strike, but they still kept the winter tires. So yeah, Russians, you'd better change your tires for every season, otherwise it will not protect you. Alright, now about the peace talks, which has just been finished in Istanbul. Russia continue their usual demands for peace in Ukraine. They want the Ukrainian army to leave Zaporizhia, Kherson, Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts, and they threaten to get more territories of Sumy and Kharkiv. So no changes from Russia at all. About Ukraine, well, it presented its memorandum officially to the Russian side, and all of the steps, as I told you yesterday, were confirmed. So Ukraine will never agree on those Russian demands, which are crazy. Well, the Russian delegation was a little sad compared to the last time. They understood that Ukraine now has cards together with Zelensky, who was involved in planning the operation on Russian military bases. So yeah, negotiations are just for negotiations. Russia stands hard on their demands. Ukraine will never agree with those. So yeah, just talks for Donald Trump. Well, the only positive thing that was agreed is the exchange of the prisoners of war once again, and it could be more than 1,000 this time, because now we're speaking for total exchange of all of the soldiers who are younger than 25 years old and who obtained severe wounds. Obviously, those are the awesome news, and I have the hope that exchange will be conducted as the last time in kind of fast manner. Plus, sides agreed on exchange of 6,000 bodies on 6,000 bodies. I wonder, why do we have limits with that, with bodies of the fallen soldiers? Kind of strange. Ukraine actually demanded the total exchange all on all, but Russia refused to agree on that. They keep our soldiers as hostages in their prisons. To pressure Ukraine and also Ukrainian families whose relatives are out there in Russia. Well, Ukraine and Russia also agreed on temporary ceasefire in occasional spots on the front lines. That will be done just to collect the bodies from the battlefields for the further exchange. According to some of the insights published in media and also by some of the influencers, the Ukrainian side has passed the list of hundreds of children who were deported to Russia by occupation administration. A source with the knowledge of the exchange say that Russian delegation Vladimir Zelensky representative and the head of the delegation said, "Don't put on shadow for bleeding, hurt European old ladies with no children of their own." Kind of strange, but they say like that. So actually they refuse to give children back to their parents or to Ukraine in general. The head of the Ukrainian delegation, Umerov, reported that there was the proposal for the unconditional ceasefire for Russia for at least 30 days, but Russian side rejected it. It means that Russia doesn't want to reach peace. It also means that Russia will continue to lose their military, also on its own territory. I guess that the next logical step is the Kerch Bridge. Kind of the interesting image I found on the Russian channels. This is the Ukrainian F-16 who is flying directly towards Orlan drone, and that's the last picture taken by that Orlan drone right before F-16 shot it down. After all, F-16s help Ukraine a lot. They protect Ukrainian sky against the Russian surveillance drones, cruise missiles and Shahids. Alright, by the time Ukraine struck the main Russian strategic airfields, there was also the sad news, which partially lost under this anxiety and joy we experienced yesterday, but I want to tell about it. So the day before yesterday, there was the precise strike of the Russian Iskander missile on a training ground of Ukrainian army. It happened in Dnipropetrovsk region. Yeah, it's the place where Ukrainian soldiers were on their military drills, so they performed some of the training in trenches. Again and again, the same mistake for Ukrainian command, and there are some of the soldiers gathered in huge groups not far behind the front lines. Everything within 100 kilometers at least from the front lines could be spotted by Russian surveillance drones, and the immediate strike could be coordinated with Russian rocket forces, as it happened here. Many of people lost their lives. The Ukrainian commander of the ground forces, Davydov, immediately resigned from his position. He said that he bears responsibility for the Russian strike, even though he's kind of talented commander, but I think the system in Ukrainian army needs to be changed. After all, it's not about particular general, everything should be reformed. I still respect Davydov and his own decision to take the personal responsibility. Obviously, investigation has already been started. As it is reported for now, 12 people were KIA, and many more were delivered to hospitals. Alright, after the second round of elections in Poland, Karol Nawrocki, okay, I call him a snooze guy, he won the elections and he will be the next president of Poland. Well, he's conservative and also Trump supporter, so for us, obviously, it's better for this candidate to win, but we have what we have. Still, it is not catastrophic for the European Union nor for Ukraine, because this guy is still way lighter compared to Romanian Simeon or Georgescu or Orban. Nevertheless, we see how Europeans tend to choose conservative candidates or right-wing candidates over traditional politics. Like, for example, Simeon also gathered lots of the votes actually in Romania, even though he lost the elections, but many people support him. Alright guys, and now let's go to the front lines update. As usual, I want to point out your attention to Konstantinivka. That, yeah, we have lots of the villages in Ukraine called Konstantinivka, but this one is in the Sumy region, right at the border with Russian Federation. So it was yesterday, and unfortunately it is today. Russia moved towards Alexeyevka, and it's been confirmed that they've took Konstantinovka under their control, so they continue to expand this bridgehead in Sumy. Again, from zoom out, it was yesterday and it is today. Russia moves ahead little by little, and they potentially may use the FPV drones to strike Ukrainian supplies in Sumy. I would say that their territorial gains in Sumy are similar to what they've able to take in Kharkiv Oblast. For example, this one for the territory is kind of similar to this one. I guess here is even more if we speak about the gray zone. So Sumy region is the new problem for Ukraine, but it is also a huge problem for Russia because they need to expand their logistics, and I don't think that they'll have enough forces to attack the Sumy city in a close-by perspective, but it could be their target. I mean political target, as for example they have occupying Donbass, Kherson, Zaporizhia. It doesn't mean that it will be implemented in real life. Also, from what I see, Russia intensified their strikes in Liman direction. They want to propel towards this water storage, towards Oskil actually. So it was yesterday, the day before yesterday, and it is right now. We have the new data coming from the front lines that Russia expands this bridgehead in many of the areas. And they're also very close to Karpivka and the local lakes. This is the natural obstacle which Russia has to bypass. Why they decided to go to the water storage instead of going to Liman, I'm out of clue. Or maybe they're just going towards the direction with the less resistance possible. So they try to find the weak spots in Ukrainian defense and they concentrate more efforts to break through every time. The direction to move is the other story, but where I may see some of the logic of the Russian army is over here. They broke through the highway now quite a lot and continue to expand this bridgehead, and for the last, I would say, 3 days, there were just minor changes. I already told about those a couple of days ago. Nevertheless, they want to create lots of the pockets out there and cause the Ukrainian army to flee those, to retreat little by little. Nevertheless, we already may speak about Konstantinivka front lines, but for that Russia should be successful in Chasiv Yar. Without it, Russians are just unable to proceed to Konstantinivka from a single vector. It could be a suicide attack. But those attacks are usual things for Russia, I would say. Alright, couple of words about the mysterious train crashes in Russia, which happened the day before yesterday and also were shadowed by the breaking news with the Russian military bases. Well, in both of the accidents, the bridges were involved. In one of the cases, the bridge collapsed and train just went into it, and here the bridge collapsed by the time the train was going through it. Immediately, Russian propaganda said about the Ukrainian trace here, that it was the kaboom of the bridge, but de facto, no. The Russian investigative committee already mentioned that the device wasn't installed there to kaput the bridge. So after all, it's just the state of the Russian infrastructure. Sometimes it could happen. Just now, then something breaks down, Russia blames Ukraine. And now, guys, please don't forget to check the link for NVIDIA AI. It is just in the video description below. And now I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.